Can we have a massive round of applause for Mr. Ranjan Bhattacharya?
Thank you, guys. Listen, anyone guess what strategy I'm going to bang on about? Anyone want to take a wild guess? Sorry? Oh, a couple of people mentioned commercial to Resi. Have you seen my slides? I just want to share a couple of facts, really, about the way the market's going to be for the next couple of years. Interest rates are going to rise. But here's the thing. Money is still going to be cheap because whatever the interest rate is going to be a third of the real inflation rate. Inflation will be running at 3 times higher than whatever the interest rate is. So what that means is, over time, is if you borrow 100 grand and you have this sustained inflation for a few years, then the value of that 100 grand will feel a lot less in a few years' time. So money is actually quite cheap. The challenge is going to be to do something with it where you generate rental cash flow which services that debt and gives you a surplus. As long as you can do that over a 5-year period, it will be very, very good for you, if that makes sense. Inflation's not at the peak yet. It is a little bit of an unofficial tax because whatever the official rate is, the unofficial rate is higher. We just know that. The thing is, it's very difficult for income levels to rise at the same rate as the unofficial inflation rate. So if you're not relying on something, some other source of income, then it's likely that your existing income sources will simply not keep pace with the real rate of inflation. So you need to do something. And if you can do something which involves taking debt, which over a 3 or 4 years period will actually turn out to be quite cheap for the reasons I said earlier, and you can do something which produces cash flow to cover that debt and make you a profit, you will be quids in. Recession is coming. I don't exactly know why it's coming. What I mean by that is I don't fully understand why the powers that be seem to want to instigate a recession. I think the interest rate rises that we're going to see is completely the wrong solution for the problem that's out there. The inflationary pressures were not caused by the economy being overheated. It's been caused predominantly by a spike in energy prices, which has rippled down the line. But here's the thing with recessions. Recessions affect businesses, because what's happening now is that the cost of living crisis is basically people's essentials have gone up. If your electricity, gas, and your utility bills are going up 3 times, and your income is not going up 3 times, then the amount you have to spend on essentials is going up. So you have less to spend on discretionary items. That means that the businesses which basically sell discretionary products and services to consumers will suffer a loss of business. Businesses that suffer like that generally occupy properties, and a lot of those properties are commercial properties. Coupled with the ideas that we talked about earlier about how the impending move to carbon neutral and sustainable commercial property, because the same thing, we did a video, Andrew and I, on what's happening with EPCs in 2025, the requirement to get to EPC rating C with residential property. A similar thing is happening in the commercial world, and that's going to make a lot of commercial buildings uneconomic to kind of keep up with the modern day standards. So we've got a lot of things coming which basically mean there'll be more supply of commercial property than there are commercial users who want to actually take on that supply. For the first time in Allsop's commercial auction, the one that just gone, I noticed 80 guide price reductions. So and I've always said that an auction is a great barometer of what's happening in the property market, because what you see happen in the auctions tends to play out in the wider property market a few months later. So normally auction houses test the market by just putting up a guide price. If they don't get enough interest, they have to reduce the guide price ahead of the sale in order to stimulate that demand. Now, as I said, for the first time I saw about 18 guide price reductions in the Allsop commercial catalogue. So you can see early signs of these trends playing out. But residential prices, Kwasi mentioned a fantastic point, which is in real terms, compared to 2008, 2007, 2008, property values have not risen. You've got to differentiate between value and price. Price is the sticker price, and that's based on inflation. But value is the real value if the price had actually kept up with the inflation, if you see what I mean. I don't think, because of the inflation rate, we're going to see a dramatic fall in prices. We'll see some things like new builds and some overextended areas perhaps dip a little bit, but by and large, values may fall, but prices certainly won't. And because you're borrowing debt, when you borrow money, you're basically not borrowing a value of money, you're borrowing a price of debt. And with inflation, the total value of that debt actually goes down over time. So you end up being quids in. And because of a lot of factors affecting, particularly regulatory factors that have come about, and we've talked a lot about this previously, rental prices, residential rents are rising and are likely to continue to do so, and are likely to stay, I don't think they'll keep up with inflation, but they'll certainly not do too bad because of supply and demand. And here's the thing. A lot of residential stock is going to be affected by 2025 because of this EPC requirement to have EPC rating of C on residential properties. But when you take a commercial building and convert it to residential use, in the process of conversion, doing the upgrade to bring it up to EPC C rating is no big deal. Taking a residential building that already exists is quite a big deal. But when you take a commercial building, you're converting it to residential anyway, doing the extra works is not such a big deal. And the reason it's not such a big deal is because of the price of commercial property compared to residential. Typically, commercial values per square foot are a third or a quarter of residential values per square foot. So thanks to permitted development, which bypasses the need for planning permission, you can actually convert commercial properties into residential use if you pick the right ones and you know what you're doing and you understand fully the permitted development rules and regulations. You can actually get permission easily within 56 days to convert commercial space into residential units. And that's where the uplift comes from, which allows you to do the conversion, bring it up to speed. What we find with modern converted flats, when they're brought up to a modern standard, they tend to command, well, they always command more rent than a grotty old Victorian property. The last time it was done up was in the early 2000s or something like that. So you tend to get premium rents for these sort of properties, because we're already finding tenants are starting to take account. It's only since in the last year, tenants are a lot more interested in utility bills than they ever were. They now care a little bit about EPCs and energy ratings and this. The other interesting thing is that vacant commercial property is worth even less than occupied commercial property. And over the next year, with the recession, we're going to see more vacant units. The new permitted development rules, one of the stipulations is the commercial property has to be vacant for 3 months before you can apply for permitted development to convert it to residential. And because of the recession, we are going to see more vacant units be on sale. And the thing about commercial property, the way it's valued is different to residential. With a residential property, if I've got a 2-bedroom flat in Hampstead, it's worth the same as an occupied 2-bedroom flat, and it doesn't matter who the tenant is. My tenant can be someone on benefits, or they can be a surgeon. The value of that 2-bedroom flat is the same. With commercial property, if it's empty, it's worth less. If it's got a substandard tenant, it's worth a bit more. If it's got a great tenant on a 20-year lease or something, then it's worth a lot more. And that's because commercial property is not valued on a bricks and mortar basis, it's valued on the cash flow it generates. So vacant commercial property is always cheaper. We've just been filming this, no, we're not filming, it's been on telly in the last few weeks. I think the final episode of this series was last Thursday. Last Thursday's episode was quite interesting. There were 3 deals pitched, and all of them were commercial to residentials. It was like a commercial to residential special. If you've missed it or you don't have Sky, propertyelevator.tv, there's a catch-up on demand service. You can watch all the back episodes. But in Series 4 of Property Elevator, some 25 deals were pitched. And I would say about 60% of them were commercial to residential conversion deals, because those give you, or they're the most investable. They're the least risky, because you know whether you're going to get the permission to convert it reasonably quickly. They take less time to execute than full planning permission type of deals, because you get the permitted development in 56 days, and because the building already exists and it's an internal conversion, the time to actually do the conversion is less. So you're in and out of a deal in a year. And in times of recession, you want to be in and out of your property deal as quickly as possible. And you know, time and time on this series of Elevator, you see some people present a deal, and they say, "Hey, this has got a 30% return." Great, but that's over 3 years. 30% return on a 1-year in and out deal is a completely different ballgame. So it's about looking at the longer the period to get your return, particularly in a recession, the more risk you're exposure to. Particularly last Thursday's episode is very interesting. 3 commercial to residential deals were pitched. It's a good learning ground to see how we all hack through those deals. Just a sort of recap of my 7 steps to succeeding over the next couple of years. What I found on Property Elevator in this season, pretty much anyone who was likable, investable, and presented a deal with 30% margin got funding for these sort of commercial to residential deals. 30% margin is very, very important, and I'll come on to that in a mo. I would make sure that all your development, you do all your figures based on getting all your uplift out of permitted development alone. Planning permission is a pain in the ass, quite frankly. There's no guarantees. It can go on forever, and particularly if you're using things like bridging finance, you can really come unstuck and lose a lot of money for each month the deal goes through without getting that permission. With permitted development, 56 days, they'll give it to you. What I do at times like this is I tend to keep the stuff. So you buy vacant commercial, you convert it to residential, and the business plan is to keep for long-term rental. Because in a time of recession, what you tend to find, the rental market goes up, selling can be a little bit dicey. If your exit is through selling on the units that you create, then remember, you only make your profit comes from selling the last 20% of units. That's when you've really paid anyone off and got any money. And that can take a little bit of time. But if your exit is renting the things out, and the rental market's good, which it always is at times like this, it's likely to carry on so, you're kind of quids in. And this is why I like 30% margin. Because if you've got 30% margin in the deal, when you finish it and you want to refinance it onto a long-term commercial mortgage, you can refinance the whole unit on a 70% commercial loan, and your 30% margin is the equity that you put into the deal. And if you're producing rental cash flow that is more than enough to sustain the debt, and you've fixed the debt for 5 years or more, that is the most surefire way of actually profiting from this recession, and not just surviving it, but thriving it and coming up with some good assets. We're going to do a Q&A in the panel. And the great thing about doing permitted development, you're in and out of these deals in a year, and you've got a good chance to rinse and repeat this strategy and do it a few times before the market changes. We do a lot of education on this. We teach this strategy, we show people how to do it. On the back of your badges is the QR code. I'm not going to bang on about it. There are loads of people that have done the course in the room. It's an 8-week commercial academy where we basically tell you how to do this, and we have group coaching calls every week to help you implement it and apply it.
Now, would you like to explain why you've come here today to the Baker Street Property Meet.
Me and my JV, we watched a lot of YouTube videos for Ranjan, and he sort of inspired us to and opened our eyes up into the commercial world.
Okay.
So we're very much interested in exploring the whole concept of commercial property.
Yeah.
We're experienced in buy-to-let properties, residentials.
Yeah.
And we're just interested in meeting different people and developing some contacts as well. And we heard that it's such a large networking event, and we thought it's a great opportunity for us to come here and meet many different individuals, like-minded
Excellent.
individuals.
I'm Lena Chapman. I have come here because it's a well-known event, and you get to meet, you network with 300 high-quality commercial developers, and actually I'm here because I did training with Ranjan, and also I get to meet you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. You're very kind. Yeah.
And then coming to programs like this, meeting people, meeting possible investors. That's why I came here to
Fantastic.
present our company.
High energy, and good contacts. I think contacts is the main thing I would want to go away with from here.
Excellent.
Like some really good, that aren't time wasters. So you get a lot of time wasters in the industry, so I just want some that aren't wasting
Some
my
quality
time.
people.
Yeah, that's
No.
it.
Well, I've started Ranjan's course, the commercial workshop,
Okay.
and I've seen a lot of the videos with you and him in, and it does seem very professional and based on data and knowledge and experience, and it seems like one of the more solid courses and experiences to go on.
High streets across the land are changing forever. Basically, there's an oversupply of retail premises. Shops are closing down, more are going to close down in the future. The government know this, and that's why they're introducing a light touch planning system which allows small developers to easily repurpose these buildings to residential use under a light touch planning regime called permitted development. Now, this is going to be the biggest revolution and the biggest change and the biggest opportunity for property investors that I've ever seen. And this is all coming into effect on 1st of August. So you need to know what's happening and what properties to look for to take advantage of these opportunities so that you can get in there and take that first mover advantage. I've got a 90-minute free masterclass to get you ready for August the 1st. Make sure you join me, click the link below. Whether you're a beginner or expert, we'll get you started.